The camera flashes erupted like fireworks across the Phoenix Classic Auto Show as Alexandra Sterling's voice sliced through the buzzing crowd. "You seriously think you can resurrect this rust bucket?" Her crimson Louis Vuitton heels clicked a deadly rhythm on polished concrete, circling the oil-stained mechanic like a predator. The 1967 Mustang sat between them, a monument to broken dreams and shattered chrome. Phones captured every venomous word, then she gestured dismissively. "Fix this engine and I'll marry you." Her laugh crystallized the air as the impossible challenge hung between them. The crowd's roar swallowed the space until 8-year-old Ruby Hayes stepped forward, her small voice cutting through the chaos. "My daddy can fix anything that's broken." Alexandra's smirk faltered for just a heartbeat. She had no clue this humble father would soon repair the one thing she thought was beyond salvation, her own fractured soul. The truth waiting in the shadows would change everything. Carter Hayes stood motionless as the laughter crashed over him like waves against weathered stone. His calloused hands, stained with 30 years of honest work, remained steady at his sides while Ruby's small fingers found his with unwavering trust. The crowd pressed closer, their smartphones capturing every humiliating second as social media buzzed with the viral moment unfolding before their hungry eyes. Alexandra Sterling towered above them in her charcoal Armani suit, every inch the corporate queen surveying her conquered territory with ruthless satisfaction. The broken Mustang between them seemed to mock Carter's quiet confidence, its rusted hood gaping open like a wound that had never properly healed. Ruby squeezed his hand tighter, her unwavering faith radiating through her tiny frame like a beacon cutting through the storm of public ridicule. When Carter finally stepped forward, his voice cut through the noise with unexpected authority that made even Alexandra blink in genuine surprise. "Ma'am, if you're serious about that challenge, then yes, I accept your terms completely." The exhibition hall fell silent, as if someone had pulled the plug on the entire chaotic world around them. Alexandra's perfectly sculpted eyebrows arched in disbelief, her confident smirk wavering for the first time that evening. She had expected the humble mechanic to retreat with his tail between his legs, not stand his ground with such unshakable dignity and quiet strength. The vintage Mustang sat like a sleeping mechanical beast between them, its engine bay revealing decades of neglect and mechanical carnage that would intimidate most professional technicians. Carter approached the car with the reverence of a surgeon examining a critically ill patient, his experienced eyes cataloging every bolt, wire, and component with methodical precision. His weathered fingers traced the engine block gently, reading the story of abandonment written in layers of rust and accumulated mechanical decay. "This old girl hasn't run in years," Carter said softly, his voice carrying the unmistakable weight of genuine automotive expertise earned through decades of patient work. "But every engine has a heartbeat buried somewhere deep inside. You just need to know how to listen for it carefully." Ruby climbed onto a nearby display crate with practiced ease, her pigtails bouncing as she peered into the mechanical maze with the same focused intensity as her father. The crowd began to murmur among themselves with growing interest, some pulling out phones to research Carter's background, while others started placing bets on the impossible task ahead. Alexandra found herself studying the man before her with newfound curiosity, noting the way his hands moved with surgical precision despite their rough, working-class appearance. Something about his quiet confidence unsettled her carefully constructed world of corporate dominance and predictable financial outcomes that had defined her entire adult life. She had built her business empire on the absolute certainty that money could buy anything and anyone. But this man seemed mysteriously immune to her usual arsenal of intimidation tactics. "1 week," Alexandra declared imperiously, her voice regaining its authoritative edge as she addressed the growing crowd of fascinated spectators. "If he fails this ridiculous challenge, I want a public apology and admission that some things are forever beyond the reach of simple people." She pulled out her platinum American Express card with theatrical flair, holding it high for the cameras like a trophy of financial superiority. "But if by some impossible miracle he actually succeeds, I'll honor my word, though we all know that outcome is completely unrealistic." The crowd erupted in cheers and jeers, the spectacle growing far beyond anything the auto show organizers had planned for their weekend event. Carter simply nodded once with dignified acceptance, his attention already returning to the Mustang as if the chaos swirling around him had ceased to exist entirely. Ruby tugged at his oil-stained sleeve, whispering something that made him smile, the first genuine expression of joy Alexandra had witnessed from him all evening. That unexpected smile lingered in Alexandra's mouth as she strutted away from the scene, her designer heels clicking against the concrete like a countdown timer marking the beginning of something she couldn't yet understand. The drive back to her downtown penthouse felt strangely hollow, the silence in her luxury sedan amplifying thoughts she usually kept buried beneath corporate strategies and quarterly projections. She found herself replaying Ruby's fierce declaration of faith in her father, the child's absolute certainty that seemed to shine through the ugliness of public humiliation. The image of Carter's gentle hands examining the broken engine haunted her usually focused mind, disrupting her typical evening routine of reviewing market reports and planning hostile takeovers. Something about the way he had touched that rusted metal with respect rather than judgment felt like a foreign language she had forgotten how to speak. Sleep came fitfully that night, interrupted by dreams of mechanical heartbeats and small voices declaring impossible things possible with unwavering conviction. 3 days passed before Alexandra found herself standing outside Hayes Auto Repair. Though she couldn't adequately explain what magnetic force had drawn her to this modest neighborhood. The garage sat nestled between family homes where children that played hopscotch in driveways and neighbors waved from front porches, a world completely removed from her glass tower downtown. Through the open bay doors, she could see Carter hunched over the Mustang's disassembled engine, his movements deliberate and almost ritualistic in their methodical precision. Ruby sat cross-legged on a worn tire nearby, sorting bolts into neat piles while humming a cheerful tune that seemed to match the rhythm of her father's patient work. The scene struck Alexandra as oddly peaceful, a stark contrast to the frenetic energy and cutthroat competition of her corporate boardrooms, where every conversation was a battle. She found herself watching much longer than intended, mesmerized by the quiet partnership between father and daughter that spoke of years of shared purpose and unconditional love. When Carter finally noticed her presence in the doorway, he straightened slowly, wiping his grease-stained hands on a faded shop rag with unhurried dignity. "Checking up on your investment?" he asked, his tone neutral but not unfriendly, as he gestured toward the partially disassembled engine spread across multiple workbenches. The Mustang looked even more hopeless now than it had at the auto show, its vital components scattered like puzzle pieces from an impossibly complex jigsaw that seemed designed to defeat even master mechanics. Alexandra stepped cautiously into the garage, her designer shoes clicking against oil-stained concrete that told decades of stories about honest labor and mechanical resurrection. The walls were lined with photographs that captured moments of triumph, families posing with newly restored vehicles, handwritten thank you notes from grateful customers, and memories of mechanical victories won through patience and skill. Ruby looked up from her sorting task with bright eyes, offering Alexandra a shy smile that felt like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. The air inside the garage smelled of motor oil and determination, a combination that felt strangely nostalgic despite Alexandra's lifelong aversion to such distinctly working-class environments. "I've never seen anyone approach a restoration project quite like this," she admitted reluctantly, surprising herself with the genuine honesty that crept into her usually controlled voice. Carter's methodical process fascinated her analytical mind. Each component was cleaned and cataloged with the infinite patience of an archaeologist uncovering precious ancient treasures. He had completely rebuilt the carburetor from scratch, machined replacement parts where originals couldn't be located, and somehow coaxed signs of life back into systems that most experts would have declared completely beyond salvation. Ruby proudly showed Alexandra the detailed notebook where she had been documenting their daily progress, complete with technical drawings and mechanical observations that would have impressed graduate-level engineering students. The little girl's infectious enthusiasm was delivered with the same boundless energy most children her age reserve for cartoon characters and playground adventures. Alexandra found herself genuinely engaged in their conversation, asking technical questions she never imagined would interest someone of her corporate stature and social position. Something about this humble garage felt more authentically real than any boardroom she had conquered through years of ruthless business warfare and strategic manipulation. As Ruby explained the intricacies of timing chains and valve adjustments with the confidence of a seasoned mechanic, Alexandra felt an unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest. Carter worked with the focused intensity of an artist creating his masterpiece, every movement purposeful and informed by decades of accumulated wisdom and mechanical intuition. When he caught her watching him work, their eyes met for a moment that lasted longer than professional courtesy required, and Alexandra felt something unexpected flutter in her stomach, a sensation that reminded her of college, when the world still seemed full of infinite possibilities rather than calculated business transactions. The Mustang slowly began to resemble its former glory under Carter's skilled attention, each restored component bringing them closer to the impossible deadline that had seemed like a cruel joke just days before. As the week progressed, Alexandra's daily visits to the garage became a ritual she couldn't explain or resist any longer. She watched Carter work with an intensity that bordered on religious reverence, his skilled hands breathing life back into mechanical corpses that others had abandoned as hopeless causes. The Mustang gradually transformed before her eyes, chrome polished to mirror brightness, and deep blue paint restored to its original factory luster that gleamed under the garage's fluorescent lights. During quieter moments between the sounds of wrenches and compressed air, she found herself asking Carter about his life with growing personal interest. She learned that he had once been an aerospace engineer who chose family over career advancement when his wife became ill with cancer. His gentle stories about late-night feedings and scraped knees painted a picture of devoted fatherhood that made Alexandra question everything she thought she knew about success and fulfillment. Ruby had officially appointed herself as the project's progress reporter, but more importantly, she had begun including Alexandra in their evening dinners of takeout pizza and homework assistance. The little girl's unwavering faith in her father never wavered, even when unexpected setbacks threatened to derail the impossible timeline they were racing against with increasing urgency. Alexandra found herself looking forward to these simple moments more than any corporate achievement she had ever accomplished in her high-powered career. On the fifth day, Alexandra arrived at the garage to find Carter sitting quietly on a workbench, staring at a photograph he held in his weathered hands. Ruby was at school, leaving the space unusually quiet except for the distant hum of suburban life continuing outside their mechanical sanctuary. "That's my wife, Sarah," Carter said softly when he noticed Alexandra's curious gaze, turning the picture so she could see the smiling woman with kind eyes. "She passed away, but she always believed I could fix anything that was truly broken." His voice carried a weight of loss that made Alexandra's chest tighten with unexpected empathy for his pain. "Some days I wonder if she was right about that," he continued, his eyes meeting Alexandra's with a vulnerability that took her breath away. The moment stretched between them like a bridge spanning two different worlds, and Alexandra felt something fundamental shifting inside her carefully armored heart. "I'm sorry for your loss," Alexandra said quietly, the words feeling inadequate but sincere in a way that surprised her with its emotional honesty. "She sounds like she was an extraordinary woman who understood what really mattered in life." Carter nodded with grateful appreciation, carefully placing the photograph back in his wallet with the reverence reserved for sacred relics of memory. "She was the one who taught me that broken things aren't worthless. They just need someone who believes they're worth saving." His words hung in the air between them, carrying meanings that went far beyond automotive restoration and mechanical repair. Alexandra felt her usual defenses crumbling under the gentle assault of his genuine kindness and the growing realization that she had been living her entire adult life as if her own heart were beyond repair. When Carter's hand accidentally brushed hers while reaching for a wrench, the simple contact sent electricity through her entire nervous system like a shock of recognition. She caught him looking at her with something deeper than curiosity, an expression that suggested he might be experiencing the same unexpected emotional awakening that was turning her carefully ordered world completely upside down. On the sixth day, as Carter carefully installed the final components with surgical precision, Alexandra found herself holding her breath alongside Ruby in anticipation of the mechanical miracle they had all been working toward. The garage had somehow become a sanctuary from her usual world of hostile corporate takeovers and financial warfare, a place where things were built rather than systematically destroyed for profit. She noticed the way Carter's face lit up when Ruby brought him coffee in a chipped mug that read, "World's Best Dad," and how his patience never wavered, even when explaining the same mechanical concept for the third time. Something profound was shifting inside Alexandra's carefully armored heart. Walls she had built over decades of corporate battles beginning to crumble under the gentle assault of genuine kindness and unconditional acceptance. The moment of ultimate truth arrived with morning sun streaming through the garage doors like a divine spotlight, illuminating destiny itself in golden rays. Carter sat behind the Mustang's restored steering wheel, his weathered hands resting with ceremonial reverence, while Ruby bounced excitedly in the passenger seat beside him. Alexandra stood next to the gleaming car, her usual unshakable confidence replaced by something that felt dangerously close to hope and emotional vulnerability. The key turned with a metallic whisper that seemed to echo through the garage like a prayer offered to the gods of mechanical resurrection. The engine coughed once tentatively, then twice more forcefully before roaring to magnificent life with a thunderous purr that shook the building's very foundations. Ruby squealed with pure delight, while Carter's weathered face broke into a radiant grin that transformed his entire appearance from humble mechanic to accomplished miracle worker. The Mustang sat purring like a contented mechanical cat, its complete resurrection undeniable proof that impossible things could indeed become reality with enough faith and skill. Alexandra stared at the miracle made manifest before her eyes, feeling her carefully constructed worldview cracking like ice under the warm sunshine of spring. "I don't understand how this is possible," Alexandra whispered, her voice barely audible over the engine's steady, confident rumble of perfect mechanical health. "The experts at my company said it was completely beyond repair. My own top engineers declared it nothing but hopeless scrap metal." Carter shut off the engine with gentle reverence and stepped out slowly, his movements deliberate and dignified as he faced the woman who had publicly mocked him just 1 week ago. Ruby jumped out and ran directly to Alexandra, grabbing her manicured hand with the uninhibited affection that only children possess naturally and without reservation. The garage fell into profound silence, except for the gentle ticking of cooling metal and the distant sounds of suburban life continuing peacefully outside their small mechanical miracle. Alexandra found herself studying Carter's face intently, searching for signs of smugness or vindictive triumph that never materialized in his kind, understanding eyes. Instead, she saw only quiet satisfaction mixed with something else, a warmth that seemed to reach directly into her carefully guarded soul. "Sometimes the most broken things just need someone who genuinely believes they're worth saving," Carter said softly, his gentle eyes holding hers with uncomfortable intensity that seemed to see straight through her corporate armor. Ruby nodded sagely, as if her father had just revealed one of life's most essential truths to someone who desperately needed to hear it. Alexandra felt something significant shifting inside her chest, a sensation she hadn't experienced since childhood. The profoundly uncomfortable recognition of being completely and utterly wrong about something fundamentally important. The restored Mustang sat between them like living evidence that miracles were still possible in a world she had convinced herself was purely transactional and coldly calculating. She thought about all the relationships in her life she had declared beyond repair, all the human connections she had abandoned rather than fight to fix and preserve. Carter stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the honest scent of motor oil and soap on his skin, and she felt her heart racing in a way that had nothing to do with business negotiations or corporate adrenaline. "I owe you more than just honoring a foolish bet," Alexandra said quietly, her voice trembling with emotions she had spent decades learning to suppress and control. "You've shown me something I thought was impossible, that there are still people in this world who create instead of destroy, who build instead of tear down." Carter's expression softened with understanding rather than judgment, his calloused hand reaching up to gently touch her cheek in a gesture so tender it made her breath catch in her throat. Ruby watched the adults with the intuitive wisdom children possess, sensing undercurrents she couldn't name but somehow understood completely with her innocent heart. "Ruby was right from the beginning," Carter said, his voice barely above a whisper filled with gentle certainty. "I can fix anything that's broken, including wounded hearts that have been hurting for too long." The garage around them hummed with the energy of transformation, mechanical resurrection, serving as a metaphor for the emotional healing that was finally beginning to unfold between two people who had found each other across the vast divide of different worlds. "I don't know how to do this," Alexandra admitted, her voice breaking slightly as years of carefully maintained emotional walls finally crumbled completely under the weight of genuine connection. "I've spent so long building barriers and winning battles that I've forgotten how to just be human with someone who matters." Carter's smile was gentle and patient, the expression of someone who understood that the most important repairs take time and careful attention to detail. Ruby stepped between them and took both their hands, creating a small circle of connection that somehow felt like the beginning of something beautiful and unexpected. "Mommy used to say that love is like fixing old cars," Ruby announced with the serious tone children use when sharing important wisdom they've learned. "Sometimes you have to take everything apart before you can put it back together better than it was before." Alexandra looked down at the little girl who had somehow become a bridge between her old life and whatever new possibility was emerging before them. Then she looked back at Carter, whose eyes held promises of patience and genuine affection that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure, offering her something she had never dared hope for. The drive back to the auto show felt like a journey between two different universes, with Alexandra following Carter and Ruby in her pristine BMW while her mind raced with possibilities. The Mustang ahead of her growled with renewed life, its blue paint gleaming in the afternoon sunlight, like liquid hope made manifest. She found herself thinking about Ruby's innocent wisdom, the little girl's absolute faith in her father's abilities, and the peaceful rhythm of their life together that seemed so foreign yet appealing. Her phone buzzed constantly with messages from her assistant, board members, and various corporate emergencies that suddenly seemed trivial compared to the emotional revolution happening inside her chest. The contrast between Carter's quiet competence and her own frantic lifestyle became impossible to ignore as they approached the moment of public reckoning. When they pulled into the auto show parking lot, a crowd had already gathered, word of the challenge's completion spreading through social media like wildfire across dry grassland. Alexandra sat in her car for a long moment, staring at her reflection in the rearview mirror and wondering when she had become someone she no longer recognized or respected. The Phoenix Classic Auto Show erupted in chaos as Carter drove the restored Mustang through the main entrance, its engine announcing their arrival with mechanical authority that silenced every conversation. The same crowd that had mocked him a week earlier now pressed forward with cameras and questions, their disbelief palpable in the sudden silence that followed the engine's shutdown. Alexandra walked beside the car with measured steps, her corporate armor feeling heavier with each stride toward the inevitable reckoning that awaited them. Ruby bounced out of the passenger seat and ran to her father's side, her face glowing with pride that made several onlookers smile despite their shock and disbelief. The vintage Mustang sat like a blue jewel under the exhibition lights, every surface polished to perfection and every component functioning as its designers had originally intended decades ago. Carter remained beside his miraculous creation, his hands resting gently on the fender, as if blessing the machine that had changed everything between them. The moment had arrived for Alexandra to honor her public promise, and the weight of hundreds of expectant eyes felt heavier than any corporate pressure she had ever faced. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alexandra's voice carried across the sudden hush, her usual commanding tone replaced by something softer and more genuine than anyone had ever heard from her. "I stand before you to honor a debt and acknowledge a truth I was too blind to see clearly." The crowd pressed closer, smartphones recording every word of what had become the most unexpected speech of her corporate career. Ruby reached up and took her hand, the simple gesture providing unexpected strength as Alexandra faced the cameras with newfound vulnerability. "This man didn't just fix an engine. He showed me that some people fix things because they believe in the value of restoration, not destruction." Her voice wavered slightly as she looked down at Carter, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time since their initial confrontation. The Mustang purring beside them seemed to underscore her words, its mechanical heartbeat a testament to the power of patient, skilled hands guided by genuine caring and unwavering faith. The auto show had become an inadvertent church, and Alexandra found herself confessing sins she hadn't known she carried in her heart. "Carter Hayes, You have accomplished something I declared impossible, and you did it with a grace I have never witnessed in my world of corporate warfare." Alexandra's hand trembled as she reached toward Carter, the gesture feeling both momentous and terrifyingly vulnerable in front of the watching crowd. "You asked for no contract, demanded no guarantee, and worked with nothing but a handshake and your daughter's faith in your abilities." The crowd had grown completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something far more significant than a simple bet being honored by a powerful CEO. Ruby squeezed Alexandra's hand encouragingly, her innocent wisdom somehow knowing that this moment required courage from all of them to move forward together. Carter stepped closer, his weathered face showing the kind of compassion that comes from understanding pain and choosing kindness anyway. The Mustang's gentle idling provided a soundtrack for transformation, its mechanical resurrection echoing the possibility of human renewal and second chances. "I promised to marry you if you succeeded." And while that was spoken in jest, I find myself wondering, Alexandra paused, her voice catching as she struggled to find words for feelings she had never allowed herself to experience. "I find myself wondering if you might consider allowing a broken woman the chance to learn what it means to truly fix something precious." The auto show erupted in gasps and murmurs as Alexandra's unexpected vulnerability hung in the air like morning mist, transforming what had been a simple challenge into something approaching sacred territory. Carter's eyes widened with genuine surprise, but not the shock of a man being propositioned by a powerful CEO, rather the recognition of someone whose armor had finally cracked enough to reveal the frightened person underneath. Ruby looked between the two adults with the intuitive wisdom children possess, sensing undercurrents she couldn't name but somehow understood with her pure heart. The crowd pressed closer, their phones capturing every nuance of a moment that had transcended viral entertainment to become something approaching genuine human connection. Alexandra felt exposed in a way that no corporate boardroom had ever managed to achieve, her carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of unexpected honesty and vulnerability. Carter's silence stretched long enough for her to question everything, but when he finally spoke, his voice carried the same gentle authority that had restored the Mustang to life. "Ma'am, I think what you're really asking is whether broken hearts can be fixed the same way as broken engines, with patience, skill, and the faith that every damaged thing deserves a second chance." The moment stretched between them like a bridge spanning two different worlds, with Ruby serving as the innocent architect who had somehow designed the connection they needed. Alexandra found herself nodding, tears threatening to breach the professional composure she had maintained for decades of corporate battles and personal isolation. Carter reached out and gently touched her shoulder with his work-worn hand. "The answer is yes," he said simply, his words carrying the weight of promises that had nothing to do with marriage proposals and everything to do with the possibility of healing and genuine connection. Ruby jumped up and down with excitement, her celebration infectious enough to make several onlookers smile through their confusion and amazement. The Mustang sat purring beside them like a mechanical blessing, its restoration serving as proof that the most broken things could indeed be made whole again with enough patience and care. Alexandra felt something loosening in her chest, a knot of isolation and cynicism that had been tied so tightly for so long she had forgotten it was there, slowly beginning to unravel. This humble mechanic and his extraordinary daughter had just offered her something no amount of money could buy: the chance to remember who she used to be before corporate success had hardened her heart into stone. 6 months later, the same Phoenix Classic auto show buzzed with an entirely different kind of energy as Alexandra Sterling stood beside the now famous 1967 Mustang, this time not as a challenger but as a partner in Hayes and Sterling Classic Restorations, a business that combined Carter's mechanical genius with her corporate expertise to create something neither could have achieved alone. Ruby ran between the display cars with unbridled joy, wearing a custom jumpsuit that read "Future Engineer" across the back in bold, proud letters that announced her ambitious dreams to the world. The auto show visitors approached their booth with respectful curiosity rather than mocking laughter, drawn by the viral story of transformation that had captured hearts across social media platforms worldwide. Alexandra found herself genuinely enjoying conversations about carburetors and timing chains, topics she never imagined would interest someone of her former corporate stature and social position. The partnership had taught her that building something beautiful required entirely different skills than tearing apart competitors, and she discovered she vastly preferred the satisfaction of creation to the hollow victories of corporate domination. "You know what the real secret ingredient was?" Carter asked quietly, as they watched Ruby explain engine restoration techniques to a group of fascinated teenagers with infectious enthusiasm. Alexandra looked at him with the comfortable familiarity that had grown between them over months of shared purpose, gradual trust, and slowly blooming love that had surprised them both. The restored Mustang sat gleaming under the exhibition lights behind them, but she knew he wasn't really talking about automotive mechanics anymore when he spoke in those thoughtful tones. It wasn't just the mechanical skill, or even the determination, he continued thoughtfully, his eyes following his daughter's animated gestures as she demonstrated proper wrench techniques to her eager audience. It was believing that something broken could become more beautiful than it ever was when it was originally new and perfect. Alexandra nodded with understanding that went far beyond car restoration. Having learned to recognize the moments when Carter spoke in gentle metaphors that helped her understand truth about life and love she had been running from for years. The crowd around them celebrated restoration and classic automotive beauty, but Alexandra celebrated something far more precious: the discovery that her own heart, like the Mustang's engine, had only needed someone who believed it was worth the patient effort of rebuilding with skill and infinite care. Ruby bounded over to them with the infectious excitement that had become the joyful soundtrack of their transformed lives together, her arms full of awards the auto show had given their restoration booth. "Daddy, Alexandra, they want to interview us for a classic car magazine," she announced breathlessly, her face glowing with pride that encompassed far more than automotive achievement or business success. Alexandra knelt down to Ruby's level, straightening the little girl's jumpsuit with hands that had learned gentleness through months of patient practice and unconditional love from both father and daughter. The photography lights caught the three of them together, an unlikely family united by chrome and compassion, their story proving that the most meaningful transformations happen not in boardrooms, but in humble garages where broken things find their way back to wholeness. Carter pulled them both into a warm hug that smelled like motor oil and hope, while around them the auto show celebrated the miracle of restoration in all its many beautiful forms. The Mustang purred contentedly nearby, its mechanical heartbeat serving as a constant reminder that with enough faith, skilled hands, and patient love, anything, even the most severely damaged heart, could learn to run like new again. Alexandra looked at Carter with eyes that sparkled with happiness she never knew was possible. No longer the ice-cold corporate queen who had walked into that garage with nothing but cynicism and cruelty. "I love you," she whispered against his ear, the words coming easier each time she said them, though they still carried the wonder of someone discovering a new language of the heart. Ruby squeezed between them, completing their circle of healing with her boundless capacity for love and acceptance of the beautiful family they had accidentally created together through mechanical miracles and emotional courage. The auto show swirled around them with celebration and mechanical marvels, but their small corner had become something much more significant. Proof that the most important repairs happen not to engines, but to the human connections that make life worth living. As the evening lights began to twinkle across the exhibition hall like stars coming to life, Alexandra finally understood that some promises made in jest can become the most beautiful truths of all. Sometimes the most broken hearts simply need someone brave enough to believe they're worth fixing, patient enough to do the careful work required, and loving enough to see the beauty that lies beneath the damage. The Mustang's gentle purr provided the perfect soundtrack for their love story, a mechanical heartbeat that reminded them daily that broken things don't have to stay broken forever. In this world of restoration and second chances, they had all found exactly what they needed. A family built not by blood but by choice, held together by the unbreakable bonds of love, patience, and the shared belief that every broken thing deserves another chance to shine. The story of Carter, Ruby, and Alexandra Sterling delivers a deeply moving lesson about the transformative power of belief, patience, and love in healing what seems irreparably broken. Carter's quiet determination to restore a rusted Mustang, fueled by his daughter Ruby's unwavering faith, shows that even the most daunting challenges can be overcome with skill and heart. Alexandra, a hardened corporate titan, learns through their gentle kindness that true worth lies not in wealth or dominance, but in the courage to rebuild, whether it's an engine or a wounded soul. Ruby's innocent wisdom, likening love to fixing old cars, reminds us that sometimes we must dismantle our defenses to create something stronger and more beautiful. This tale stirs the heart, urging us to see the potential in broken things, be it machines, relationships, or ourselves, and to approach them with compassion rather than judgment. It challenges us to believe in second chances, to invest in the slow, careful work of restoration, and to find joy in connections that transcend status or cynicism. Carter and Ruby's humble garage becomes a sanctuary where miracles unfold, proving that love and faith can mend even the most shattered pieces. What part of this story touched you most? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment where belief in someone or something led to unexpected healing? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're eager to hear your stories. If this journey of restoration inspired you, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to join our community of dreamers who cherish the beauty of second chances. Let's keep spreading hope and love, one heartfelt story at a time.